The grand hall was decorated with glittering lights, colorful banners, and soft music playing in the background. Guests were chatting and laughing, unaware of the tension brewing at the center of the room. Samuel raised his glass, smiling at the crowd. "Laura, you're my queen. But sometimes you embarrass me in front of everyone," he said, his tone teasing yet loud enough for all to hear. Laura froze. Her heart sank. "What did you just say?" she whispered to herself. Her eyes scanned the room. The guests were now looking at her. Some gasped, others whispered among themselves, and a few giggled awkwardly. Samuel laughed louder, pointing subtly at her. Laura's hands clenched at her sides. A tear formed in her eye, but she blinked it away. She refused to cry in public. Voiceover, Inner Thoughts of Laura. They laughed at me. My own husband humiliated me. But I will not break. I will rise, and one day, they will all see the truth. Visual cue, close-up of Laura's eyes, camera slowly zooming in, showing hurt and determination simultaneously. Slow motion effect for impact. Laura turned and walked away from the hall, her heels clicking softly on the polished floor. The crowd's murmurs faded behind her. She paused near the corner of the hall, took a deep breath, and whispered, "This is only the beginning. I will change everything." Montage begins, extended. Laura at her apartment, late at night. Surrounded by papers, laptop open. Phone calls in progress. Close-up of her hands typing, highlighting points, taking notes, arranging files. She makes calls to potential clients, networking with confidence. Occasionally looking at motivational quotes pinned on the wall. Meal prep quick shots, showing her discipline. Time-lapse of night turning into morning. City lights changing, showing the passage of time. Voiceover. Humiliation became her fuel. Every sleepless night, every small victory, every challenge she overcame added strength. Samuel thought he had won. But he had unknowingly created the woman who would surpass him in every way. Visual cue, Laura's eyes reflecting city lights through the window. Music slowly builds from tense to subtle determination. Occasionally, Samuel heard vague rumors of Laura's progress but dismissed them, assuming she could never reach his level. Meanwhile, Laura quietly grew her company, learned leadership, and expanded her influence. Transition, slow fade out, lingering on Laura's determined face, preparing viewers for the next stage of transformation. Morning light entered through Laura's window, illuminating stacks of papers, notebooks, and her laptop screen still glowing from the night before. She hadn't slept much, yet her eyes showed determination rather than exhaustion. She slowly prepared a cup of coffee and stared into the rising steam, her thoughts drifting back to the laughter and humiliation she had faced. A quiet resolve filled her chest. "They saw weakness," she murmured softly. "They saw someone easy to laugh at. But they never saw my strength. And now they will." She sat down again, opened her laptop, and began reviewing emails. Some responses rejected her proposals. Others questioned her experience and credibility. Her fingers paused over the keyboard for a moment. She took a deep breath, straightened her posture, and rewrote her pitch with renewed confidence before sending it again. Days passed in relentless effort. Laura attended small professional meetups, shaking hands politely, introducing herself with confidence even when ignored by some attendees. She studied business strategies late into the night, watching seminars, reading articles, and taking detailed notes. She practiced presentations in front of a mirror, refining her tone and posture. She calculated budgets, balanced expenses, and learned financial discipline. Meals became quick and efficient as she prioritized progress. One evening, after a difficult call ended in rejection, she sat quietly in the dim glow of her screen. Her shoulders dropped slightly, doubt creeping in. Maybe they were right. She whispered to herself. Maybe I'm not enough. Her reflection stared back at her from the dark monitor. The memory of public laughter echoed in her mind. Her eyes hardened. No. I am more than enough. She reopened her laptop and continued working. Weeks turned into months. Calendar pages flipped, sunsets blended into sunrises, and her notes multiplied. Contacts grew. Opportunities slowly appeared. Then came the first acceptance message. A proposal approved. A meeting confirmed. Soon after, her first contract was signed. She smiled quietly, pride filling her eyes. It wasn't loud celebration, it was steady confidence built on effort. More successes followed. Documents signed, partnerships formed, plans executed. She registered her company, organized her workspace, and built momentum step by step. Standing by her window one night, city lights glowing beneath her, she reflected calmly. He humiliated me publicly, but I rebuilt myself privately. And soon, the world will witness the result. Elsewhere, Samuel laughed confidently at social gatherings, enjoying attention and praise. When someone casually mentioned Laura's growing reputation, he chuckled dismissively. Laura. She couldn't possibly compete in my world. The rain kept falling harder, soaking everything around her. She stood there on the empty road, shivering and confused, wondering how a simple argument had turned into this moment. Her husband had driven away, leaving her behind as if she meant nothing. At first she thought he would come back, that this was just anger talking, but minutes passed, and the silence only grew louder. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to stay warm. Her phone battery was almost dead, and the streetlights flickered above her. Fear slowly replaced her disbelief. She started walking, unsure of where to go, each step heavier than the last. Water splashed beneath her shoes, and the cold wind cut through her clothes. Just when she felt like giving up, she heard the sound of a vehicle approaching. The headlights slowed beside her. For a moment she hesitated, unsure whether to trust a stranger. But the window rolled down and a calm voice asked if she was all right. Something in that voice felt safe. She explained her situation briefly, embarrassed and emotional. The stranger offered her a ride to somewhere warm and dry. After a pause, she agreed. During the drive, she stared out the window, thinking about everything that had led to this moment, the misunderstandings, the silence, the distance that had grown between her and the person she once trusted the most. The warmth inside the car gave her time to reflect. She realized how important self-respect and communication were in any relationship. No one deserved to be abandoned or made to feel small. Sometimes painful moments become the turning point that forces us to see our own worth. When they reached a safe place, she stepped out feeling different, still hurt, but stronger. She understood now that life often sends protectors in unexpected forms, reminding us that kindness still exists even in dark moments. That night, standing under a shelter instead of the rain, she promised herself that whatever came next, she would face it with courage and dignity. And as the storm slowly faded behind her, she took a deep breath and walked forward, not just toward a destination, but toward a new chapter of her life. Morning arrived quietly, and the storm from the night before had faded into a soft gray sky. She hadn't slept much, her thoughts still replaying everything that had happened. Yet something inside her had changed. The pain was still there, but it was mixed with a strange sense of clarity. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't just reacting. She was thinking about what she truly wanted for her own life. She stepped outside, breathing in the cool air, and tried to plan her next move. Ignoring the situation wouldn't fix anything. She knew she had to confront it, not with anger, but with honesty. Gathering her courage, she reached for her phone and dialed his number. Each ring felt heavier than the last. When he finally answered, there was silence on both ends for a moment. Their conversation was awkward at first, both searching for the right words. She explained how she felt that night, not just abandoned physically, but emotionally. She spoke calmly, refusing to let her voice break, making sure her message was clear. Respect and understanding mattered to her, and she wouldn't ignore that anymore. On the other side, he sounded different too, quieter, regretful. realizing perhaps how serious things had become. They agreed to meet and talk face to face. Hours later, they sat across from each other. The tension noticeable but not hostile. It wasn't about blaming anymore, it was about understanding. They discussed mistakes, expectations, and the distance that had formed between them over time. Sometimes relationships drift apart without anyone noticing. Until one moment exposes everything. As the conversation continued, both began to see things more clearly. Apologies were exchanged, not as a quick fix, but as a step toward rebuilding trust. Whether their relationship would fully heal remained uncertain. But this time, they were choosing communication over silence. And that itself was progress. Walking away from that meeting, she felt lighter. The outcome wasn't perfect, but she had stood up for herself. She realized that strength isn't about never falling. It's about knowing your value and refusing to stay unheard. Whatever the future held, she knew she would face it differently now, with confidence and self-awareness guiding her decisions. The journey wasn't over yet. Challenges and questions still lay ahead. But as she looked toward the horizon, she understood that every chapter, even the painful ones, shapes who we become. And she was ready to keep moving forward, step by step, writing her story with courage rather than fear. The night felt calmer than before, but inside her mind, thoughts were still moving like waves that refused to settle. Days had passed since that conversation, and life had started returning to its normal rhythm. Yet something was different now, she was different. The silence that once scared her had turned into space for reflection. And she began to understand her own strength in ways she never had before. She focused on herself for the first time in months. Small changes came first, organizing her routine, reconnecting with things she enjoyed, and surrounding herself with people who brought positivity instead of doubt. Confidence isn't built overnight. But step by step she noticed her mindset shifting. The pain that once dominated her emotions was slowly transforming into motivation. When they met again, it wasn't tense like before. There was honesty between them, something that had been missing for a long time. They spoke openly, not just about what went wrong, but about what they both needed moving forward. Sometimes love survives difficult moments. And sometimes it teaches lessons before paths separate. What mattered most was the clarity they had gained. In that moment, she made a quiet promise to herself, never to ignore her worth again. Relationships are important, but self-respect comes first. Whether together or apart, she would always protect her dignity and voice. That realization alone gave her a sense of peace that she hadn't felt in a long time. As she walked forward into her future, she understood that every experience, even the painful ones, carries purpose. The rain, the loneliness, the confrontation, all of it shaped her into someone stronger. Her story wasn't defined by one night or one mistake. It was defined by how she chose to rise afterward. And so, the chapter closed not with revenge or regret, but with growth. The kind of growth that can't be seen immediately, but stays within, guiding every decision ahead. The world moved on. And she moved with it, calmer, wiser, and ready for whatever came next. Her journey continued, not as someone waiting for validation, but as someone who had finally discovered her own power.